The unexpected inheritance. In the year 2187, humanity had expanded its reach far beyond the solar system. Technological advancements had made interstellar travel a common occurrence, and humans were now mingling with alien species across the galaxy. Among these humans was Dr. Ethan Drake, a brilliant yet modest astrophysicist working on a remote space station in orbit around Earth. His life was a routine of research and quiet solitude until a message from a distant galaxy shattered his ordinary existence. The message came through on an encrypted channel, unusual enough to catch Ethan's attention. The sender's identity was even more surprising: a wealthy alien merchant named Zephyr, whom Ethan had met only once during a scientific conference years ago. The message was brief but life-changing. Dr. Ethan Drake, I regret to inform you of the passing of Zephyr of Xylon. As per his final wishes, you are named the sole heir to his vast estate. Please report to the Andromeda spaceport immediately to claim your inheritance. Ethan blinked at the message, unsure if it was some kind of elaborate prank. He barely remembered Zephyr, a tall, enigmatic alien who had seemed fascinated by human ingenuity. They had shared a few conversations over interstellar communication protocols, but Ethan had never imagined he had made such an impression. Curiosity, mixed with a sense of responsibility, prompted him to pack his belongings and board the next transport to Andromeda. As Ethan's shuttle approached the massive Andromeda spaceport, he felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The spaceport was a bustling hub of activity, with ships from countless star systems docking and departing. He couldn't help but feel out of place among the crowd of merchants, travelers, and alien dignitaries. Still, he pressed on, following the directions in the message to a secluded office at the far end of the port. The office was small and dimly lit, contrasting sharply with the bright and busy spaceport outside. A holographic display flickered to life as he entered, revealing the image of an elderly alien dressed in traditional Cylonian garb. Dr. Drake, welcome, the hologram greeted him in a solemn tone. I am the executor of Zephyr's estate. His will was clear. You are to inherit everything. Ethan listened in stunned silence as the hologram detailed the extent of his new inheritance. Zephyr had owned a colossal starship, a thriving interstellar trading company, and even a luxurious mansion on a distant planet called Luminara. The wealth and power now at Ethan's disposal were unimaginable, especially for someone who had lived a humble life focused on scientific inquiry. But the hologram wasn't finished. There is one final condition, it continued. Zephyr's family traditions require that you take responsibility for his business and personal affairs, including his chosen partner. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Partner, you mean? Yes, the hologram confirmed. Zephyr's wife, Layla. She is now your responsibility. The door to the office slid open, and Ethan turned to see a stunningly beautiful alien woman enter the room. Her skin shimmered with a soft, iridescent glow, and her eyes, deep and captivating, locked onto his with an intensity that made him feel as if she could see straight into his soul. Dr. Drake, Layla said, her voice melodic yet firm, I am now bound to you by the laws of my people. I will serve as your guide, your advisor, and if you so choose, your partner in this new life. Ethan was speechless. The idea of inheriting wealth and power was one thing, but inheriting a person, especially someone as enigmatic as Layla, was something he had never anticipated. He could sense a deep well of intelligence and emotion behind her calm exterior, and the weight of responsibility began to settle heavily on his shoulders. Before he could respond, the hologram flickered again. You must leave immediately for Luminara, it instructed. There are forces at work that will stop at nothing to claim what is now yours. You have little time to decide your course. Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing. This was not the life he had chosen, but it was the one that had chosen him. With Layla by his side and an entire empire to manage, he knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and intrigue. But it was also an opportunity to make a difference on a scale he had never imagined. All right, Ethan finally said, his voice steady. I accept the inheritance. Let's get to Luminara. Layla nodded, a hint of approval in her eyes. Very well, Dr. Drake. The adventure begins. Together, they'd boarded Zephyr's starship, a sleek and powerful vessel that gleamed under the spaceport's artificial lights. As they prepared to depart, Ethan couldn't help but wonder what challenges awaited them on Luminara and whether he was truly ready for the journey ahead. The journey to Luminara. Ethan settled into the captain's chair, still feeling the weight of his sudden inheritance. Layla stood beside him, her presence both comforting and mysterious. The starship's control panel lit up as they prepared to embark on their journey to Luminara, a planet shrouded in mystery and known for its breathtaking landscapes and powerful inhabitants. As the ship's engines roared to life, Layla began inputting the coordinates for Luminara. This ship is equipped with advanced navigation systems and a quantum drive, she explained. We'll reach Luminara in a matter of hours. Ethan nodded, his mind racing with questions. Layla, can you tell me more about Zephyr? Why did he choose me to inherit all of this? Layla's gaze softened. Zephyr was a visionary, always seeking out those who could see beyond the ordinary. He saw something in you during your brief encounters, an intellect, a curiosity, and a potential that many overlook. He believed you could take his legacy further than anyone else. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He had never imagined that his casual conversations with Zephyr had left such a profound impact. But I'm not a merchant or a leader. I'm a scientist. Layla smiled, a hint of amusement in her expression. That's exactly why he chose you. Science is the foundation of progress, and in a galaxy full of competing interests, Zephyr believed that someone with your mindset could steer his empire toward a brighter future. As they continued their journey, Layla guided Ethan through the ship's various systems. The starship was more than just a vessel. It was a masterpiece of alien engineering, equipped with technologies that far surpassed anything Ethan had ever encountered. From the quantum communication arrays to the self-sustaining life support systems, every aspect of the ship was designed with precision and care. But it wasn't just the technology that fascinated Ethan. Layla herself was an enigma. Despite her calm demeanor, he could sense a deep reservoir of emotions beneath the surface. He wondered what it must be like for her, bound to a stranger by an ancient tradition, and yet she seemed so composed, so in control. Layla, Ethan began hesitantly, I can't imagine this is easy for you. Being bound to me, I mean. Layla turned to him, her expression unreadable. It is not easy, but it is my duty. In our culture, duty is everything. Zephyr chose you for a reason, and I will honor his decision. Ethan appreciated her honesty, but couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than she was letting on. If there's ever anything you want to talk about, anything you need, you can tell me, he offered. Layla nodded, her gaze softening slightly. Thank you, Dr. Drake. I will keep that in mind. The rest of the journey passed in relative silence, with Ethan studying the ship's systems and Layla occasionally offering guidance. As they neared Luminara, the planet's twin suns cast a warm, golden light across the cockpit. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he caught his first glimpse of the planet. Luminara was a world of contrasts. Vast oceans sparkled under the sun's light, while towering mountain ranges stretched toward the sky. The planet's surface was dotted with lush forests and expansive deserts, each region more breathtaking than the last. It was clear why Zephyr had chosen this place as his home. As they prepared to land, Layla's demeanor shifted. She became more focused, her eyes scanning the planet's surface for any signs of danger. Luminara is a beautiful world, she said quietly, but it's also full of potential threats. We must be cautious. Ethan nodded, trusting her judgment. As they descended toward the planet's surface, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and trepidation. He was about to step into a world he knew little about, with only Layla to guide him. But one thing was certain, This was just the beginning of an adventure that would test his limits and force him to confront challenges he had never imagined. The starship touched down in a secluded valley surrounded by towering cliffs. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of alien flora that filled the valley. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over him. "Welcome to Luminara," Layla said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is your new home, Dr. Drake. Are you ready to face what lies ahead?" Ethan looked out at the stunning landscape, the weight of his new responsibilities pressing down on him. But beneath the anxiety, there was also a spark of excitement. He was about to embark on a journey that would change his life forever, and he couldn't wait to see where it would lead. "Let's do this," he said, determination filling his voice. "I'm ready." Together, they stepped off the ship and into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on this strange and beautiful world. The secrets of Luminara. Ethan and Layla stepped onto the surface of Luminara, the planet's twin suns, bathing them in a warm, golden glow. The valley where they had landed was a place of serene beauty, with towering cliffs surrounding a lush expanse of emerald grass and vibrant alien flowers. But beneath the tranquility, Ethan could sense something more, a subtle hum in the air, as if the very ground was alive with energy. Layla led the way, her steps sure and purposeful. Ethan followed, his eyes scanning their surroundings, both awed and cautious. The starship behind them stood as a reminder of the advanced civilization they had left behind. But here, on Luminara, everything felt primal and ancient. They walked in silence for a while, the only sounds being the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of alien wildlife. Eventually, they reached the entrance to a hidden pathway that wound its way up one of the cliffs. The path was narrow and steep, but Layla navigated it with ease, her movements graceful and fluid. Ethan, on the other hand, found the climb challenging. He wasn't used to such physical exertion, having spent most of his life in the controlled environment of space stations and starships. But he pushed himself forward, determined to keep up with Layla and not show any weakness. After what felt like hours, they reached the top of the cliff. Ethan paused to catch his breath, but when he looked up, the sight before him took it away again. At the cliff's summit stood a magnificent structure, Zephyr's mansion. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen, a seamless blend of alien architecture and natural elements. The walls were made of a crystalline material that shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting the colors of the surrounding landscape. The roof was formed from the branches of an enormous tree, its leaves a deep purple that contrasted beautifully with the golden sky. Layla turned to Ethan, her expression serious. "This is Zephyr's mansion, your new home. But it's more than just a residence. It's a sanctuary, a place of power. You'll soon understand why Zephyr chose this place." They approached the entrance, and the mansion's massive doors swung open as if sensing their presence. Inside, the mansion was just as awe-inspiring as its exterior. The floors were made of polished stone that felt cool beneath Ethan's feet, and the walls were lined with intricate carvings depicting scenes from Cylonian history. But what caught Ethan's attention the most was the central chamber, a vast room with a domed ceiling that was transparent, offering a breathtaking view of the sky above. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small glowing orb. Layla gestured to the orb. "This is the heart of Luminara, the source of the planet's power. It's a relic of ancient times, created by the first inhabitants of this world. Zephyr was its guardian, and now that responsibility falls to you." Ethan approached the pedestal, feeling the orb's energy pulsing in the air. He reached out hesitantly, and as his fingers brushed the orb's surface, a surge of warmth spread through his body. In that moment, he understood. This was no ordinary artifact. The heart of Luminara was alive, and it was connected to the very essence of the planet. As Ethan stood there, absorbing the gravity of his new role, Layla spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "The heart is the key to everything on Luminara. It controls the planet's natural defenses, regulates the climate, and even influences the minds of those who live here. But it's also a target. There are those who would do anything to possess its power. Ethan withdrew his hand, his mind racing. Who are these people? And why would they want the heart? Layla's eyes darkened. Luminara is a place of great power, and power attracts those who seek to dominate. There are factions within the galaxy, rival merchants, warlords, even some of Zephyr's former associates, who would stop at nothing to claim the heart for themselves. They see it as a weapon, a tool to bend the universe to their will. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. The weight of his new responsibilities was growing heavier by the minute. And what about you, Layla? What's your role in all of this? Layla met his gaze, her expression unreadable. I am your guide and protector, Dr. Drake. I was Zephyr's partner, and now I am yours. But my loyalty lies with Luminara and the heart. I will do whatever it takes to ensure its safety, even if it means defying you. Ethan was taken aback by her bluntness, but he appreciated her honesty. I don't intend to misuse the heart's power, Layla. I just want to understand it, to protect it like Zephyr did. Layla nodded, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. Then we are aligned. But be warned, Dr. Drake, those who seek the heart will not be easily deterred. You will need to be strong, both in mind and in spirit. Ethan knew she was right. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was determined to rise to the challenge. He had inherited more than just wealth and a mansion. He had inherited a legacy, one that carried with it the fate of an entire planet. As they left the central chamber, Layla led Ethan through the rest of the mansion, showing him the various rooms and explaining their functions. There was a library filled with ancient texts, a laboratory equipped with cutting-edge technology, and even a training hall where Ethan could hone his skills. But it wasn't until they reached the mansion's garden that Ethan truly understood the beauty of Luminara. The garden was a sprawling oasis of vibrant colors and scents, with plants and flowers that seemed to pulse with life. A small stream wound its way through the garden, its water sparkling with a faint blue glow. This garden is special, Layla said, her voice tinged with reverence. It's connected to the heart, just like everything else on Luminara. The plants here are unique, each one with properties that can heal, strengthen, or even protect. Zephyr spent many years cultivating this place. It was his sanctuary. Ethan walked through the garden, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He could see why Zephyr had loved this place. It was a reminder of the delicate balance of nature, a balance that was now in his hands. As they continued to explore the mansion, Ethan's mind kept returning to the heart of Luminara and the responsibility it represented. He knew that he couldn't do this alone. He would need allies, both on and off the planet, to protect the heart from those who would seek to exploit it. But for now, he had Layla by his side, and that was enough. The day was drawing to a close when they finally returned to the mansion's main hall. Ethan was exhausted, both physically and mentally, but there was a sense of purpose within him that he hadn't felt in years. Layla looked at him, her eyes softening. You've had a long day, Dr. Drake. You should rest. Tomorrow, we'll begin your training and prepare for the challenges ahead. Ethan nodded, grateful for the respite. As he made his way to his new quarters, he couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and apprehension. He was stepping into a world full of unknowns, with dangers lurking around every corner. But he was also stepping into a world of endless possibilities, where his actions could shape the future of not just Luminara, but the galaxy itself. And as he lay down to sleep, the last thought that crossed his mind was of the heart of Luminara, pulsing with power deep within the mansion. It was a symbol of everything he had inherited and everything he would become. Whatever challenges awaited him, Ethan Drake was ready to face them. The adventure had only just begun. Allies and adversaries. The morning sun on Luminara was a sight to behold. Its twin suns cast a golden hue across the sky, and the air was filled with the melodious calls of alien birds. Ethan awoke to this serene beauty, feeling a mix of wonder and determination. He was no longer just a scientist or an explorer. He was now the guardian of Luminara's most precious secret, and his new life was just beginning. After a quick breakfast, Layla led Ethan to the mansion's training hall. The space was vast, with high ceilings and walls lined with advanced technology. Holographic projectors were scattered throughout the room, and there was a range of equipment that Ethan didn't recognize but assumed was meant to test his physical and mental limits. "Before we do anything else, you need to understand how to protect yourself," Layla said, her tone serious. "Luminara is not just a paradise, it's also a battleground. You will face challenges from those who want to control the heart. Some will come at you with brute force, others with cunning and deception. You must be ready for anything." Ethan nodded, already feeling the weight of his responsibility. "I've never been much of a fighter, but I'll do whatever it takes to protect the heart." Layla smiled slightly, her expression softening for a moment. "I don't expect you to become a warrior overnight, Dr. Drake, but you do need to learn how to defend yourself and how to think strategically. Zephyr wasn't just a diplomat or a merchant, he was a master tactician, and that's how he kept the heart safe for so long." The training began with basic physical exercises to build strength and endurance. Ethan struggled at first, his muscles protesting the unfamiliar strain, but he pushed through, knowing that this was just the beginning. Layla's instructions were clear and precise, and she demonstrated each move with the grace of someone who had trained for years. Next came combat training. Layla showed Ethan how to use a variety of weapons, from energy blades to plasma pistols. She emphasized the importance of precision and control, teaching him to focus on disabling rather than killing his opponents. The goal, she explained, was not to become a warrior, but to survive and protect the heart at all costs. As the hours passed, Ethan began to feel more confident. He wasn't a natural fighter, but he was learning quickly, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. Layla was a patient teacher, correcting his mistakes and pushing him to improve with each session. When they finally took a break, Ethan was drenched in sweat and breathing heavily, but there was a spark of determination in his eyes. "I didn't realize how much there was to learn," he admitted, wiping his brow. "But I'm starting to understand why Zephyr was so careful." Layla handed him a water bottle and nodded. Zephyr knew that power attracts enemies, and that the heart is the most powerful artifact in this galaxy. But he also knew that true strength comes the test of wisdom. The following day, Layla led Ethan deep into the heart of the mansion, where a hidden chamber awaited. The air was cooler here, and the walls seemed to hum with a faint, ancient energy. Ethan could feel the power of the heart of Luminara even before they entered the room. "This is the Chamber of Wisdom," Layla explained as they approached a large, ornate door. It was created by the ancients who first discovered the heart. "Here, you'll be tested, not on your physical strength, but on your wisdom and ability to make the right choices. The heart doesn't just require a guardian who can fight. It needs one who can lead with insight and integrity." Ethan swallowed hard. He had always considered himself a rational thinker, someone who relied on logic and evidence. But this was different. The stakes were higher than anything he had ever faced, and he knew that a single mistake could have catastrophic consequences, not just for him, but for the entire galaxy. The door to the chamber slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a circular room bathed in a soft, ethereal light. In the center of the room was a pedestal, upon which rested a glowing crystal orb. The walls were adorned with symbols and inscriptions in a language Ethan didn't recognize, but somehow understood. It was as if the knowledge was being transmitted directly into his mind. "This orb is the heart's interface," Layla said, her voice echoing slightly in the chamber. "When you touch it, the heart will begin the test. It will challenge your mind, presenting you with scenarios that will force you to make difficult decisions. These decisions will reveal your true character and determine whether you are worthy of being the heart's guardian." Ethan approached the pedestal, feeling a mixture of awe and trepidation. He reached out, his hand hovering over the orb. "What kind of scenarios?" he asked, glancing back at Layla. "They will be tailored to you. based on your past experiences, fears, and values, Layla replied. There's no way to predict what you'll face. Just remember to stay true to yourself and don't be swayed by fear or doubt. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. He knew this was a crucial step in his journey, and there was no turning back. With a final glance at Layla, who gave him an encouraging nod, he placed his hand on the orb. Instantly, the room around him dissolved, and Ethan found himself standing on a desolate planet, the sky dark and stormy. He was alone, with nothing but the howling wind for company. In the distance, he saw a figure approaching, shrouded in a cloak. As the figure drew nearer, Ethan recognized it as Zephyr. But this wasn't the calm and wise Zephyr he had met in the hologram. This Zephyr was haunted, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. Ethan, Zephyr's voice was a whisper, carried by the wind. You must make a choice. Save the few or sacrifice them to save the many. There is no middle ground. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. The scenario was a classic ethical dilemma, one he had pondered in theoretical discussions, but never thought he'd have to face in reality. He looked around, but there were no other clues, no hints about the right choice. What are the consequences? Ethan asked, trying to buy time to think. Zephyr shook his head slowly. That's not for me to say. The heart is testing your judgment, not your ability to gather information. You must decide and live with the consequences. Ethan clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had always believed in the greater good, in making sacrifices for the sake of others. But now, faced with the actual decision, the weight of it was almost unbearable. He could see no clear path, no perfect solution. Finally, Ethan closed his eyes and made his decision. I choose to save the many, he said, his voice steady. Even if it means sacrificing a few, it's the only way to prevent greater suffering. The storm around him intensified, and for a moment, Ethan thought he had made the wrong choice. But then, the scene dissolved, and he was back in the Chamber of Wisdom, the orb still glowing under his hand. You chose wisely. Layla's voice came from behind him. Ethan turned to see her standing in the doorway, a faint smile on her face. The heart respects those who are willing to make the hard decisions, even when it costs them dearly. You've passed the first test. Ethan exhaled a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The relief was overwhelming, but he knew there were more challenges ahead. The heart of Luminara was not something that could be mastered easily. It demanded everything from its guardian: strength, wisdom, and above all, courage. As they left the chamber, Layla placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You've proven yourself today, but the road ahead is long. Remember, the heart chose you for a reason. Trust in yourself and in the bond you share with it. Together, you can protect Luminara and ensure its secrets remain safe. Ethan nodded, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. He had passed the test of wisdom, but he knew that the greatest challenges were still to come. The galaxy was vast, and there were forces out there that would stop at nothing to claim the heart's power for themselves. But Ethan was ready, and with Layla by his side, he would face whatever came next. The shadows of the past. The days following the test of wisdom were filled with rigorous training. Ethan honed his abilities, learning to synchronize his thoughts with the heart of Luminara. He and Layla spent hours in the mansion's ancient library, studying the histories and prophecies that foretold the heart's significance. Every moment was a lesson in discipline, patience, and understanding. But as he delved deeper into the secrets of Luminara, Ethan couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. He began to experience strange dreams, visions of a past that wasn't his own, memories of battles long fought, of friends lost, and enemies still lurking in the shadows. These dreams left him with a profound sadness, and more than once he awoke in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. One evening, after a particularly troubling vision, Ethan found himself standing on the balcony of his quarters, staring out at the vast forest that surrounded the mansion. The stars above were obscured by a thin veil of clouds, and the air was thick with the scent of rain. He couldn't stop thinking about the images that had haunted him, faces he didn't recognize, but somehow felt connected to, places he'd never been, but seemed oddly familiar. Layla found him there, leaning on the stone railing, lost in thought. "The past is catching up with you, isn't it?" she asked quietly as she joined him. Ethan glanced at her, surprised by her insight. "How did you know?" She gave a small, understanding smile. The heart has a way of merging its guardian's consciousness with the memories of those who came before. It's trying to teach you something, to prepare you for what's to come. The visions are a part of that. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But why now? Why these memories? I don't even know who these people are." "They were previous guardians, warriors, and protectors of Luminara," Layla explained. "Each one had a unique bond with the heart, and their experiences are now a part of it. The heart is sharing those memories with you because it believes they hold lessons that will be crucial in your journey. But it's also warning you." "Warning me?" Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. "There's a darkness tied to the heart's past, enemies who have sought its power for their own gain," Layla said, her voice tinged with concern. "Some of those enemies were defeated long ago, but others, they still exist. The visions are not just memories, they're a glimpse into the dangers that lie ahead. The heart is showing you what you're up against." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that the nightmares he'd been experiencing were more than just random images, that they were connected to real threats he would have to face, was deeply unsettling. He had always known that becoming the heart's guardian would be a challenge, but he hadn't anticipated how personal it would feel. "Is there any way to stop these visions?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Layla shook her head. "You can't avoid them, but you can learn from them. The heart is giving you a chance to prepare, to understand your enemies before you meet them, and you won't face them alone." Ethan looked at her, seeing the determination in her eyes. He knew that she had her own connection to the heart, her own reasons for being here. "What about you, Layla? Do you have these visions too?" She hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I do. But mine are different. The heart shows me things from my past, my own mistakes and regrets. It's a way of reminding me why I'm here, and what's at stake if we fail." Ethan reached out and took her hand, feeling a deep sense of solidarity. "We'll get through this together, Layla. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that we have to be ready for anything." Layla squeezed his hand, her expression softening. "We will. And remember, the heart chose you for a reason. Whatever challenges lie ahead, you have the strength and wisdom to overcome them." As they stood there, side by side, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The shadows of the past might be closing in, but he wasn't afraid. With Layla by his side and the heart of Luminara guiding him, he was ready to face whatever darkness awaited. Little did he know, the first of those challenges was closer than he realized. Deep in the forest, beyond the mansion's protective barriers, a figure watched them from the shadows, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The ancient enemy, long thought defeated, had returned, and it was only a matter of time before Ethan and Layla would have to confront the threat that had haunted Luminara for centuries: the gathering storm. The following days were marked by an uneasy calm. Ethan and Layla continued their training, deepening their understanding of the heart of Luminara, but the tension in the air was palpable. The mansion, usually a place of serene beauty, seemed to be holding its breath, as if anticipating the storm that was about to break. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Though he tried to focus on his studies and practice, the sense of an unseen presence lingered, gnawing at the edges of his awareness. Even Layla, normally so composed, seemed on edge, her eyes frequently darting toward the windows as if expecting something, or someone, to appear. One evening, as they were finishing a particularly intense training session in the mansion's grand hall, a strange energy rippled through the air. The candles flickered wildly, and the heart of Luminara, which Ethan now carried with him at all times, began to pulse with a soft, ominous glow. Layla froze, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the room. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, her voice tense. Ethan nodded, his hand instinctively tightening around the heart. What was it? Before Layla could respond, a loud crash echoed through the mansion, followed by the sound of shattering glass. The noise came from the direction of the library. "Stay close to me," Layla instructed, drawing her weapon, a slender, glowing blade that hummed with energy. Ethan did the same, his heart pounding in his chest as they moved toward the source of the disturbance. As they approached the library, the temperature dropped sharply, and a thick fog began to seep through the corridors, obscuring their vision. The once familiar mansion now felt like a maze, each turn leading them deeper into the unknown. When they finally reached the library, they found the large, arched windows shattered, the floor littered with shards of glass. The fog swirled inside, creating eerie patterns in the dim light. But it wasn't the fog that caught their attention. It was the figure standing in the center of the room. Tall and cloaked in shadow, the figure radiated an aura of malevolence. Its eyes glowed with a crimson light, and in its hand, it held a staff topped with a dark crystal that seemed to absorb the light around it. The air around the figure crackled with dark energy, and the very walls of the mansion seemed to tremble in its presence. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, stepping forward with as much courage as he could muster, the heart of Luminara pulsing in response to the threat. The figure turned its gaze toward Ethan, and for a moment, the room was filled with a deafening silence. Then, in a voice that was both cold and hauntingly familiar, the figure spoke. "I am the Shadowkeeper, guardian of the forgotten, master of the darkness that you so foolishly seek to control." Ethan's blood ran cold. The name struck a chord deep within him, resonating with the memories the heart had shown him. The Shadowkeeper was a name spoken of only in whispers, a being of immense power who had once sought to claim the heart of Luminara for himself. He had been defeated long ago, or so the stories said, but now he stood before them, very much alive. "You were defeated centuries ago," Layla said, her voice steady but laced with anger. "How are you here?" The Shadowkeeper chuckled, a low, sinister sound that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. "Defeated, yes, but not destroyed. I was merely waiting, biding my time, gathering strength. And now, the time has come to reclaim what is rightfully mine." The crystal atop the Shadowkeeper's staff glowed brighter, and the dark energy in the room intensified, causing the fog to thicken. Ethan could feel the heart of Luminara reacting to the presence of its ancient enemy, its light growing stronger as if trying to push back against the encroaching darkness. "We won't let you take the heart," Ethan said, raising his weapon, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. "We'll protect it with our lives." The Shadowkeeper's eyes narrowed, and he raised his staff. "Then your lives will be forfeit." With a sudden violent motion, the Shadowkeeper unleashed a wave of dark energy toward them. Ethan and Layla barely had time to react, diving to the side as the force of the attack shattered the library's remaining furniture and sent books flying off the shelves. Ethan landed hard on the floor, the wind knocked out of him. As he struggled to get back on his feet, he saw Layla already engaging the Shadowkeeper, her blade clashing against the dark energy that surrounded him. She moved with grace and precision, each strike aimed at finding a weakness in their foe's defenses. But the Shadowkeeper was powerful, more powerful than anything Ethan had ever faced. He wielded the darkness like a weapon, each of his attacks forcing Layla to retreat, her own light barely holding back the tide of shadow. Ethan knew he had to do something, but his mind raced with uncertainty. The heart of Luminara pulsed in his hand, its warmth reassuring, but he wasn't sure how to use its power in a fight like this. The visions he had seen, the memories of past guardians, flashed through his mind, but they offered no clear answers. "Ethan, focus." Layla's voice cut through his panic, bringing him back to the present. She was still holding her ground, but he could see the strain on her face. She couldn't keep this up forever. Taking a deep breath, Ethan closed his eyes and concentrated on the heart, trying to connect with it on a deeper level. He reached out with his mind, feeling for the energy within, the power that had been passed down through generations. The heart responded, its light growing brighter, filling him with a sense of clarity and purpose. When he opened his eyes, the world around him seemed to slow. The fog, the darkness, the Shadowkeeper's attacks, all of it was still there, but now Ethan could see through it, as if he had unlocked a new level of awareness. He could see the flows of energy, the patterns of light and shadow, and he knew what he had to do. "Layla, now," he shouted, and she nodded, understanding his unspoken plan. With a burst of speed, Layla disengaged from the Shadowkeeper and leaped toward Ethan. In that instant, he channeled the energy of the heart into her, amplifying her strength and imbuing her blade with the pure light of luminara. Together, they turned to face the Shadowkeeper, their combined power radiating like a beacon in the darkness. The Shadowkeeper hesitated, sensing the shift in the balance of power. His eyes flickered with uncertainty, but it was too late. With a coordinated strike, Ethan and Layla unleashed their combined energy, a brilliant wave of light that cut through the shadows and struck the Shadowkeeper with the force of 1,000 suns. The dark crystal on his staff shattered, and the Shadowkeeper let out a scream of rage and pain as he was engulfed in the light. The fog dissipated, and the dark energy that had filled the room vanished, leaving only silence in its wake. When the light finally faded, the Shadowkeeper was gone. All that remained was the shattered crystal and the lingering sense of unease that hung in the air. Ethan and Layla stood there, breathing heavily, their hearts pounding from the intensity of the battle. They had won, but they both knew this was only the beginning. The Shadowkeeper might have been defeated, but his return signaled a much larger threat on the horizon. "We need to prepare," Layla said, breaking the silence. "This wasn't just an isolated attack. There are more out there, more enemies who will come for the heart." Ethan nodded, still holding the heart of Luminara close. He had passed the first real test, but the road ahead was long and fraught with danger. The gathering storm had begun, and he would need every ounce of strength, wisdom, and courage to face what was to come. But as he looked at Layla, he felt a spark of hope. They had faced the darkness together and emerged victorious, and as long as they stood side by side, he knew they could overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. The heart of Luminara pulsed softly in his hand, a reminder that its power was not just his to wield, but theirs to share. And with that power, they would protect the light, no matter how dark the world became.